The easiest way nowadays to make something trend on social media is to attach the suffix core to it. Ballet core, cottage core, anime core, kids core, internet core, even core is a thing. But now we're seeing a new core that is trending, and that's underconsumption core. A direct response to the overconsumption that is promoted on social media. Underconsumption is celebrating not buying clothes every single week, using products to the last drip, and not buying the latest steel military-sized bottle when you have one that works just as well. It is a trend I saw that I was quite interested in that blew up because unlike literally everything else on the internet, it seems to be influencing us to do something good. But it got me thinking, as an artiste, is it possible to practice underconsumption? And if so, how would that look like? Everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Rumbo. Yay! For those who don't know me already, I'm an artist and I make videos just about that. So if that interests you, you might want to hit the subscribe button down below. English is not with me today. I'm so sorry. You might notice that I am in a slightly different area. I am in the States right now. It has been a while that I have sat and chat with you guys, even though I'm not sitting right now, I'm standing. Is it possible to be an underconsumption warrior as an artist? This is a question I've been thinking about a lot, especially because this trend had been more popular nowadays. The very nature of art is that you have to buy things and use things to produce something. It's a very direct production and consumption hobby or skill or action. No matter what form your art takes, you have to produce something. And in order to produce something, you need to consume something. You need to get products or tools or systems to make. And yeah, I think an easy answer to the question, can we practice underconsumption, is yes. But this video cannot end this quickly, so I am going to overthink and you're gonna overthink with me. I think my interest is more piqued at the fact that regardless of what you do, you have to consume something, you have to use something. And this is where my shower thought moment really peaks. I realized that in being an artist, I'm going to have to buy things and use things to create things, which in itself is not a bad thing. But I always wonder what the environmental footprint of being an artist is. Does it make sense? I don't know if I'm making sense. Sometimes I shouldn't air my shower thoughts because I don't know how to put it into words. Because we'll always need materials, no matter what it is, even if it's digitally, which will end up being disposed at one point or another, even if it turns into an artwork. Like compared to the hobby of running, where maybe every so 100 of kilometers you replace your sneakers, you don't really have to buy things to do it. We are perpetually consumers and producers as artists. So by that virtue, is it possible to be underconsumptive? Underconsumption core has been dubbed as the romanticization of the middle class, which I absolutely love. I feel like nowadays we've become so desensitized to overconsumption because it's literally everywhere, and it has been for a while, but now it has been revved up to like the bajillions. The OGs being like back to school hauls or what I got for Christmas or clothing hauls and try-ons, and then TikTok brought Shein hauls and Stanley Cup collections, which we saw earlier this year. All of these types of videos and content show rows upon rows upon rows of items because the more stock and stuff you have, the more satisfying the video is. Even though I believe that we have become a lot more environmentally conscious and like economically conscious, I do think that we are still susceptible to platforms successfully pushing this overconsumptive behavior. It's in the way that they curate these platforms to make it so desirable to buy literally anything. TikTok shop is now a thing. People having Amazon storefronts, direct links to online web pages. It's become more and more easier to easily purchase whatever you want to at any given time. I used to watch a lot of art supply videos. Initially, it was just to see reviews of something I did already intend to buy, but then it just like went into a spiral of seeing new things that I wanted to add for no reason. Stuff I knew I was gonna use maybe once and then never again. Also, in watching other art creators or artists on YouTube and seeing their backgrounds in their studios like filled with a bunch of supplies, and their setup looks like so freaking cool. and I wanted to also have the same thing. So I think that I needed to buy like everything they have, not even for the practical use of the supplies, just so that I also had that kind of setup. So yeah, I do think there are some things in the art world, or at least in art creation online, that may feed into overconsumption. The desire to want to purchase more materials than you need, and also to have a certain setup. Although we need to consume things, there can be a point where you are just buying things just for just, or just to have the entire collection when you really don't need that much. So this was the one way that I thought that we can fall into the dangers of overconsumption in art or as an artist. The second way is with inspiration. And I mean inspiration with very, very big air quotes. I watched a video who touched base on this topic, so I'll link it down below. I feel like I absolutely wrecked my brain by consuming way too much stuff online. Short form media has fried my brain. I literally cannot go a single minute in my day without some sort of visual or auditory stimulus going on in the background. I've tried so many things to improve my phone obsession, and some of them have worked, some of them haven't. But the funny thing that I had to call myself out on is that sometimes I would watch an art-related video or art-related content to justify that, no, I'm not doom scrolling. I'm looking for inspiration. I am not procrastinating on my phone for hours and hours on end. I am supporting other artists. Sometimes I am watching these videos for inspiration or supporting or blah, blah, blah. But I know myself. Most of the times, it's just to avoid the guilt that comes with the fact that I am procrastinating and doom scrolling and just being lazy on my phone. I'm trying to make it seem like it's productive because it's related to something I do. I'm just kidding myself. I am in denial. Aside from this, the content I consume on the whole is just not beneficial. It's not that I need to constantly be watching productivity and things that can make myself better, but a lot of what I consume is just utter nonsense, and for the most part, I can't even tell you what I just watched in the past 3 hours. That's the problem. Consuming inspiration, whatever form it is good. Consuming too much inspiration is an excuse to procrastinate because you are too lazy to start, or you are anxious of starting for whatever reason. And I can tell you confidently that I fall into the second group, because there comes a time when your consuming of inspiration just takes away way too much time from you actually creating. After all of that being said and done, what is it that we can actually do? Here are some things that I have been personally doing that has kind of helped me take a step back. So let's focus on the first half, being consumption of physical things. And the first thing that I think very practically that really helps me to not overconsume is to go into, when I do need to purchase something, is to go into the store with a physical list. Sometimes I forget and I type it on my phone, but that's still fine. I just think that a physical list is more helpful for me because it then just like minimizes any distractions. Going into a store unplanned, like not knowing what you need to buy, is a recipe for disaster. It is a recipe for going out with 10 bags when you only needed one item. Making sure that you have a list of things that you need to buy is essential. Looking down at that paper and going directly to the aisles where you know that whatever you need is. And I do this by like planning. If I have something that I want to do, then I'll see what I already have at home. And if I do need to buy something, write it in a list. Art stores are traps. Let me tell you now, there is so much and everything is bright and colorful and shiny. The second thing is to really look at what I already have at home and see how I can use what I already have to do what I want to do. Maybe you have a very distinct vision in your mind, and that requires a very distinct material. I think it might be healthy to practice looking at an alternative of making your vision come to life and seeing if you can use what you have to do what you want. I know this is something that was taught or encouraged in art school and even in high school. My opinion is it wasn't more so to be mindful of our consumption, but because of, for lack of better terms, the budget. Regardless, I think it is a very healthy approach to creating. I am a big fan of using up everything you have first before you go out and buy something. Having the mindset that you always need to buy something to start something new is gonna make it a problem, because then it's gonna be like, if you want to start something, you're gonna automatically associate it with, okay, then I need to buy something new. If you practice looking at what you have first and then using that to create something, then you'll train your brain to think, okay, I don't always have to run to the shops to buy something to create something. I can use what I have right here and make the most of it and do whatever I want. And the last thing that I think will help with underconsumption or reducing your consumption as an artist is to delay the period of time between the desire to buy something and the actual buying of it. If there is something you see in the store that you think, I think I really want that, go home. Don't buy it immediately. Go home, think about it, and see if you still have the same desire to buy it a week later. I do this with books, actually. There have been books on my TBR list, like my to be read list, that I have waited an entire year to buy. And I found that the ones that I really enjoyed, or the ones that I was very happy that I bought, were the ones where even a year later, I was still thinking about that book. Same goes for art. It doesn't have to be a year long, but if there is something you see in the store, go home and delay. Think about it over a week, because sometimes you are just looking at it in the moment and you're like, I need it, but you don't. And I find that that also happens with like marketing, especially online, when people are like, run, don't walk, or you need this now, drop everything and go. They're creating this artificial urgency, and that's like a marketing tactic, so that you are triggered into thinking that you need this thing right now. If you're not going to get it now, you're never gonna have it ever again, which is a lie. My mantra is, if I have been living perfectly fine before that item, I am going to be absolutely fine afterwards without it still. Even if you're online, if you're buying something online, you can put it in your cart, then close your phone, throw it to the wall. Don't actually do that. Stop, take a breather, eat some lunch, come back, and then you'll realize that your desire is way less than when it was in the moment. If you are enjoying so far, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with all your friends, please and thank you. The second part of consumption that we can reduce as artists, and this one I'm not going to talk about that much because I feel like I've made videos which have like a similar vein. First thing I'm going to say is, if it works for you, have time blocking. Have dedicated times to research and consuming media and inspiration, but make sure that it doesn't infiltrate the time that you blocked off to create art. In the video that I watched, she was talking about how like she was consuming a lot and she realized that it took so much time away from her actually creating. But now that she has reduced that, she found that she has created a lot more and had a lot of time to like dedicate. I wish I remembered the channel name, which I 100% agree with. I feel like I have not created a lot for the past year at all. It's only now that I am actually taking more intentional time to create without the need or desire to just like consume a lot of inspiration. A lot of us, including me, fall into the trap of over planning because we are afraid to just start. Sometimes just starting is the best thing, and then picking up inspiration along the way. If you can create a system where you block off specific time to content consuming to make sure that it doesn't touch creating time, that might be very helpful for you. And if you aren't like the type to block out things in your calendar or keep a calendar to begin with, just making sure that at least for this moment in time, the time you're spending getting inspired or consuming media, whatever it is less than the time you are creating. We forget that inspiration also comes from yourself. You're not making someone else's work. You're making your own work. So you don't always need to be, looking at the latest blah, 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 or what she's doing or what he's doing or what you should do. And the second thing that I have been doing to try and take my mind off of over-consuming inspiration and media at the moment when I realize that I'm doom scrolling or that I don't have anything that I plan to do in that time, and I resort to just like bombarding my brain with images and blah, 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 blah. That is the time when I would create. So instead of filling your time with distracting yourself with so much like influx of short form content, taking that time to just sit still and be with yourself, whether it's create or just to sit still, which is so scary. It might be an exercise that you could try out if you want, to just sit with a notepad and pen or a canvas and a paintbrush or your drawing tablet and see what you create, see what you want to do without anybody telling you what to do, without anything distracting you. There were times when I would try and create and I'd be like, okay, let me go on Pinterest and see what inspires me. But then I would get distracted and just like keep scrolling through Pinterest. Sitting down and letting the only thing being in front of me being myself and my art or what I want to do. It's training my brain to be less on consume and create. It's a bit of a wafty advice or like a wafty idea, but generally just try it. It is much harder. One of the ways that you can only make this happen is to make sure that your environment is primed for that. Hiding your phone, turning it off on specific times, having app blockers if you need to, putting your art materials in very visible areas so it's easy to just reach out for. If you can get into the action of replacing that distraction time with time one-on-one with yourself, I think that can really help balance the relationship between how much you consume and how much you produce. I'd love to hear your thoughts, whether you have also been battling with overconsumption as an artist, or maybe you didn't even think this was an actual thing. Maybe I have just given you a weird shower thought to think of. I'm going to end this video off here and say thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, if you like me, subscribe, comment down below, all that fun jazz, and until then.